Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Show here on my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and first of all, Happy New Year to everybody. I hope all of you guys out there had a fun, safe, wonderful New Year's Eve, and that you guys had time to spend time with your loved ones, family, and friends, and that it was a good celebration for all. I had a great time last night. Ann and I went out to Niagara Falls, Canada to have some fun, and I hope you guys had as much fun as we did. Now, here's how today's show is going to go. It is the first show of 2018. I'm going to give you a couple of disclaimers. Number one, I'm almost over it, but I'm still a little bit sick, so you might hear me cough and hack and wheeze a little bit. But also on top of that, I am still out at the Campea Ranch visiting family over Christmas, and we don't have the most reliable internet here, so hey, if suddenly the show suddenly stops in the middle of nothing, I apologize for that. But a lot of people have been saying they missed the live show, so I want to try to do this thing live. All right, here's how today's show is going to go. I've picked out 5 topics that you guys have emailed into me. How do you send in a topic or a question to the John Campea Show? It's really quite simple. You just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. Send on in those emails. Make sure you put the word topic in the subject line. And guys, very important, keep those emails to 90 words or less, or else I'm not going to be able to use them on the show. I won't even read them because I wouldn't be able to fit them on the screen even if I wanted to. Okay, now the second half of the show is going to be taking your guys' live questions if we're still around during the second half of the show, if the internet hasn't crapped out on us. And there are several ways you guys can send in live questions. You guys know all about that. So with that out of the way, let's get started with topic number 1 of 2018. And the first topic today comes to us from one of my Patreon supporters, Kenneth Colton, who writes, "Hi, John. I listened to how you don't mind if there are no deaths in Infinity War due to Marvel fake killing off characters. With this film being the start of the culmination of the MCU and Thanos as the villain, don't you think stakes should be at their highest and we could see real deaths from main characters? Thanks, and bring on the filthy." Well, thanks a lot, man. And this is a question that's come up a few times, to be honest with you. Like, people want to know, you know, shouldn't they raise the stakes? Shouldn't there be real deaths? Who's going to die in Infinity War and all that kind of stuff? And you guys know what I normally say. Look, I'm fine if they don't kill off major characters, as long as you don't keep fake killing characters. Fake killing characters is the worst. You know what I mean? Oh my gosh, they killed Nick Fury in Winter Soldier. Oh wait, by the end of the movie, no, he's alive. Oh my gosh, they killed Loki. Oh no, later he's alive. Oh my gosh, they killed Thor. No, later he's alive. Oh my gosh, they killed War Machine. No, don't worry about it, he's alive. They've gone to the well too many times with that. So that's always been my big complaint, is that they do that sort of stuff. And hold on a second, I've already got an issue here that I got to fix. Forgive me. I'll just keep this thing going. You guys notice my screen has frozen. So this is one of the little kind of problems I'm going to experience while I'm doing the show here. So anyway, there we go. We're back up and running again. So anyway, getting back onto the main topic here. What you have to do, though, is make sure that if you're going to kill these characters, you can't fake us out, because that's what kills stakes. What kills stakes is the fake killing of characters. So if something dramatic happens and we don't believe it, that's what kills the stakes. You know, I've talked about this before. Killing off a main character, like, how many Batman movies have we had? They never kill Batman. Does that mean we never have stakes? And here's the other thing about that. Let's look at an MCU movie that did just have major stakes, and that's Thor Ragnarok. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a... Most of you have seen Thor Ragnarok by now, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a spoiler warning here now, that in case you haven't seen it, some of this you might consider a little bit of a spoiler. So you've been warned, okay? In Thor Ragnarok, we see all the members of the Warriors 3 die. All the Warriors 3 die that were featured so prominently in Avengers 1 and Avengers 2, they all die. Odin dies. Thor loses an eye. Thor loses Mjolnir. Asgard is destroyed. You want to talk about stakes? Those are some of the biggest stakes any MCU film has ever had. However, you got some people coming out of Thor Ragnarok saying, oh, that movie had no stakes. There was no drama. There was no tension. It's like, this is like, as far as dark things happening goes, this movie had more dark stuff happen in it than any MCU movie so far. But see, just the losing of those characters to some people doesn't mean there are stakes. Odin dying doesn't mean stakes is not about heroes living, like in Batman, or heroes dying, like in Thor Ragnarok. Stakes comes from the feeling that terrible things could happen. Whether they do or don't happen doesn't necessarily change whether you feel they did or did not have stakes. What really causes the sense of stakes is whether the movie, to me, is structured in such a way that you think they could lose everything. That's really what stakes is about. Because again, and I love Thor Ragnarok. I think it's the darkest movie the MCU's done so far and the funniest movie they've done so far, all at the same time. But again, for a lot of people, it didn't have stakes because Odin died. Like, you suddenly kill off, I don't know, let's say you kill off Black Widow. Does that just by itself, you press that button, kill Black Widow, that makes it have stakes? I don't think so. And I think we've seen proof of that that's not really necessarily how it all works or how it all pans out. So I'm not sure that's really the case. Also, not killing characters. That doesn't raise the stakes either. And it doesn't lessen the stake. It's all about how do you put it together dramatically. And just for me as an audience member, watching the trailer for Avengers Infinity War, I saw stakes. I mean, whether or not somebody dies, whether Vision dies, whether, Hawkeye dies, whether Ant-Man dies, whether Captain America dies, whatever, I felt stakes in the trailer because of what was on the line. And, a lot of movies have, the world could end, but you never feel stakes. This is, yes, the world could end, but you could feel the stakes in the trailer. You could feel the tension. And whether or not characters die, look, they could kill off 3 or 4 major characters. Absolutely they could. I'm not going to be surprised one bit if Vision dies. I'm not going to be surprised one bit if, Scarlett Johansson dies. I'm not going to be surprised one bit if Paul Rudd dies. I'm not going to be surprised with any of that. That could happen, absolutely. But I still don't have the belief that they need to kill off one of those characters in order for them to have stakes. Any more than I felt that for Justice League to feel like it had stakes, you have to either kill off Flash or Cyborg or Batman or Wonder Woman or Aquaman. No, you didn't. You could still put in a sense of stakes without killing off those characters, and I believe they can still do that moving forward. Some of you have a different opinion than that, and that's totally fine. Leave me your thoughts below. All right, let's move on now to the next question, if I can find it here. There we go. And the next question comes to us from Adam Affandy, who writes, "Hey John, love your channel. Thank you so much, Adam. My question is, what happened to the Fortunately the Milk movie by Edgar Wright? It was supposed to star Johnny Depp and Edgar Wright to direct. Is it dead? Thoughts?" All right, thanks a lot for the question. And for those of you who don't know, a couple of years ago, there was talk about taking this Neil Gaiman book called Fortunately the Milk, which is kind of like a weird, I never read it myself, I just read the synopsis of it. This weird mixture of like comedy with a sci-fi adventure, time travel, things like that. We're all supposed to be involved with it at the same time. And there was this movie, and back in 2015, there was a report that came out, a legit report, that Edgar Wright was in talks to direct a feature film version of it, and Johnny Depp was in talks to star in it. However, it was never announced that they were doing it. To the best of my knowledge, it was never announced that Edgar Wright had signed on, or that Johnny Depp had signed on, or that they greenlit the movie. So yes, you remember correctly hearing about this movie maybe happening, but it was never supposed to happen. Like, they never greenlit it, and never got moving. Today, if you look at Johnny Depp's or Edgar Wright's IMDb page, you'll note there's no mention of Fortunately the Milk. It doesn't look like this movie is going to be going anywhere or doing anything. So it looks like that movie has come and gone without ever actually happening in the first place. But yeah, that's a really neat little piece of movie trivia. What movie was Johnny Depp supposed to star in that was a book based on a book written by Neil Gaiman? Now you know. The answer is Fortunately the Milk. All right, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from, where does it come to us from? It comes to us from Greg Sinclair, who writes, "With this year having some great Oscar potential movies, do you think there is one movie that's going to sweep the award competition, or is it going to be spread out through a bunch of movies?" All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yeah, everybody knows my favorite time of year is the Oscars. I love the Oscars, and we are heading into a very competitive Oscar year. And right now, Greg raises a great question. Is this going to be the kind of Oscar year that we are going to see a movie, say like Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, that completely comes in and dominates? Or are we going to see most of the major awards kind of spread across a lot of multiple movies? I happen to think that this year for the Oscars, it's going to be the type of Oscars that we're going to see awards spread out throughout multiple movies. Because, for instance, first of all, I don't think there's any clear shoe winner to win Best Picture at all. I mean, it could be The Post, it could be Dunkirk, it could be, I mean, there's a few others that have an outside shot at winning Best Picture as well. So I don't really think there's a big major frontrunner for Best Picture. Well, then you look at something like then Best Actor. Well, odds are Best Actor is going to go to Gary Oldman for playing Winston Churchill in Darkest Hour. But I don't think Darkest Hour is going to really win any of the other major awards. I don't think it's going to win Best Picture. It doesn't really have a lead actress, so it's not going to win Best Lead Actress. I don't think it's going to win Best Director. I don't think it's going to win Best Screenplay. Then you start looking at, okay, Best Actress. Probably have to put the front runner on that, maybe Meryl Streep, maybe one or two of the others. But, you know, like, let's say it goes to, I don't know, anybody. There's not a lot of the front-running lead female actresses this year who are in movies that are serious contenders for Best Picture. Now, Meryl Streep with The Post, maybe that's one. But I don't think Spielberg's getting Best Director for this. So it's not going to be spread out there. So I don't see, like, The Post sweeping a lot. It could win a couple of major ones, but I don't see it sweeping a lot. I don't see Dunkirk sweeping a lot. It could win a couple, but I don't see it, like, winning 9 awards, something like that. So, yeah, I think this is going to be one of those really interesting years where we're going to see a lot of the big awards get spread out across multiple films. And I honestly don't know that we're going to see any film win more than 6 awards this year. I'm going to make a guess right now. I don't think any film this year at the Oscars is going to win more than 6 Academy Awards. Maybe I'm dead wrong about that, but we're going to find out soon enough. All right, let's move on now to the next question. This should get some people talking. All right, this one comes to us from Andrew Odette, who writes, Happy New Year. Thank you so much, Andrew. What are your thoughts on Jodie Foster's statements regarding the current state of movies? She says that movies have become like an amusement park and that studios are trying to merely appeal to the masses. Isn't that the point? She also says some other disparaging things. What do you think? All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And what Andrew is referring to is Jodie Foster recently said some things. We'll read off what she said here in just a second. She recently said some things that were not very bright, to be honest with you. They were not bright. They were not smart. They were not intelligent things for somebody of the intelligence of Jodie Foster to say, okay? She just said some flat-out stupid things. Now, before I get into what it is she said, let me say this. I think Jodie Foster is a premier talent in the world of film. Her talent as an actress seems to only be surpassed by her talent as a filmmaker, as a director. One of the highlights of my career, I consider to be the time I got to meet and talk to Jodie Foster. Amongst all the people I've gotten to meet and talk to, I would say meeting and talking to Jodie Foster has to rank in the top 10 of my favorite, like geeking out kind of experiences ever. I have a load of respect for Jodie Foster. I think the lady is just insanely talented. I just think she's the bee's knees, to use a Jerry Seinfeld expression. I think she's the bee's knees. I just think she's awesome. I love Jodie Foster, and I will continue to love Jodie Foster. Despite what we're about to talk about here, I think she's amazing. And I still think she's amazing. I think she just said something incredibly ignorant and stupid. Just like you have said some incredibly ignorant and stupid things. Just like I have said some incredibly stupid and ignorant things. Just like everybody has a bad day where they say something incredibly stupid and ignorant. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to call it as I see it. She said something incredibly stupid and ignorant, no matter how much of a fan of I am at first. Okay, so what was it she said? Let's read her comments here. This comes from the interview that she did. Going to the movies has become like a theme park, the actress turned filmmaker explains. Studios making bad content in order to appeal to the masses and shareholders is like fracking. You get the best return right now, but you wreck the earth. Foster went on to take aim at specific genre, which is particularly popular right now. It's ruining the viewing habits of the American population and then ultimately the rest of the world. I don't want to make $200 million movies about superheroes. Let me read that last part again. It's ruining the viewing habits of the American population and then ultimately the rest of the world. I don't want to make $200 million movies about superheroes. Okay, Jodie, first of all, no one's asking you to make a $200 million movie about superheroes. That's fine. And look, let me preface this by saying this. If Jodie Foster were to have come out and say, you know what? call me old-fashioned, whatever, I don't like superhero movies. I don't like the big blockbuster comic book based movies. They're not for me. I don't like them. They don't work for me. I don't think they're any good. I'd have no problem with that because all film is subjective. And if she just wants to express her subjective opinion, I got no problem with that. You should have no problem with that. I should have no problem with that. It's totally fair and totally cool if that's her opinion. That's fine. Unfortunately, Jodie Foster crosses a line here. And she isn't just expressing her own opinion, saying, I don't like comic book movies. That would be fine for her to say. Unfortunately, that's not what it is she's saying. She's saying, pardon me, she's saying things like, these movies are ruining the habits of the American public. Wait, what? What? Let's read that again. Let's see exactly what it is she's saying. It's ruining the viewing habits of the American population. And then ultimately the rest of the world, because I don't want to make $200 million movies. $200 million, superhero movies. Studios making bad content in order to appeal to the masses. Those filthy, unwashed masses. And shareholders, you get the best return right now, but you're wrecking the earth. Okay, at these comments, you are crossing a line from simply expressing your own personal opinion about these movies, which there is nothing wrong with. Now you're crossing a line and getting to the territory of you are insulting the audience. You're straight up insulting the audience. And let's keep something in perspective here. This year there were what, 8 or 9? 8 or 9 big blockbuster comic book based movies? Maybe 8 or 9 of them? We just finished reading off a whole list of these incredible, some independent, artistic films where they're talking about Shape of Water, Baby Driver, The Post, Molly's Game, Dunkirk, Blade Runner 2049. You want to talk about, we could go on and on. I just put up a list on my social media the other day of 15 films that I thought could have contended for the #1 Best Picture of the Year list. 15 of them, and one of them was a comic book movie. So don't talk to me about how, oh my, it's like she's talking as if every single movie every studio puts out now is a big comic book movie. There were like 8 out of the 400 that got made last year. So don't talk to me and whine and complain about, oh, this is all they're doing. No. Also, notice what she's complaining about. Ultimately, what she's complaining about isn't that the studios are making these movies. She's complaining that people are going to watch them. And get this. She thinks you, the audience member, at least this is the way her statement comes across, and I believe if Jodie Foster had the opportunity to walk back how her statement came across, she probably would, okay? So let's be fair about that. But the way her statement comes across, she's basically saying Americans are too stupid to know what they should be watching, and you studios, you're just feeding them what they want to watch. You should know they're too dumb to know what they should watch. You shouldn't be making these movies to appeal to the masses. I'm sorry. The last time I checked, the movie business was a business. You're in the business of making movies that people will want to come out and see. And as much as I adore and worship at the altar of Jodie Foster, she's an all-time great, she'll always be a hero to me. What she is really coming across as is an entitled little brat who's whining, complaining, you people are going to go see these movies that I don't like. You're ruining your own viewing habits. You're ruining your viewing habits. You're supporting crap content. I'm sorry, Jodie. All film's subjective, but Logan's a comic book movie, and that's a better movie than any you've ever made in your career. That's just my opinion. Maybe other people will disagree. But that's fine. Then you're talking about opinions. But to sit here and try to point the finger and make accusations that these movies that really are just movies you don't like, and making statements like, oh, making these movies that the masses want to go see. Oh, I'm sorry, Jodie. Hollywood should only make movies that appeal to snobby, uptight, ass wrenchers. Those are the only movies that anybody should make. These are the only films for people like you and people like those who come to your Saturday night parties. Those are the only movies movie theaters should make. They shouldn't bother making movies that other people actually want to see. And there's room for both. There is room for massive blockbuster hits. There is room for artistic, beautifully made films. There's room for excellent big blockbusters and excellent small indie films. There's room for all that. But for any filmmaker in this business to try to pass off their personal opinion and saying, oh my gosh, the fact that audiences want to go see this crap, that means they're ruining the movies. You should only make movies that the audiences should go to see, not the movies that audiences want to go to see. That is ignorant ass shit right there. Coming out of the mouths of one of my Hollywood heroes. And again, once we get past this issue, she's my Hollywood hero still. She's still 10 times smarter than I will ever be on my best day. Make no mistake about it. But statements like this are just ridiculous. Jodie, it would have been better if you just came out and said, you know what? I don't want to make comic book movies. They're not for me. I don't like those films. That's fair. That's fine. But the moment you start doing things like, oh, studios are making movies that audiences want to see, go figure that they'd want to make some money. Go figure that these big blockbuster hits are what finance the fact that some smaller, artistic types of films can actually get made. Go figure. But that whole crossing of the line of saying audiences are too stupid to know what they want, studios should only give them what they should like and not what they actually like, that's just nonsense. And then to write off all of it as just being garbage is, I'm sorry. I mean, that's an opinion and she's entitled to that one. I got no beef with her on that. I will stand up and disagree with her though, because I believe there are a couple of comic book movies that got made this year that I'll watch before I watch any of hers. And I love a lot of her movies. Don't get me wrong. But this whole disrespect of the audience thing, that's got to go. This whole disrespecting of what the audience and spitting at the fact that the audience... Look, you know what? You know what movies I don't like? I don't like the Twilight movies. I don't like the Twilight movies. I didn't think the last one was all that big, was all that horrible. But in general, pardon me, I don't like the Twilight movies. But you're not going to hear me make an argument. And you'll see me argue against other people say, they need to stop making those Twilight movies. I'll just say, why? If they're just because you don't like them, there's an audience there that they like those movies. Bravo that those people get to have a studio make a movie that they want to go see. That's great. I don't like the Twilight movies, but I'm not going to say they shouldn't make them. I don't like 50 Shades movies. To me, they're terrible and they're garbage. That's my opinion. But you know what? Some people get a real kick out of going to watch them. It would be asinine then for me to then go, well, you should make those movies. But why, John? There are people who like them. Well, they shouldn't like them. Okay, now I'm an ass. Well, I'm already an ass. Everybody knows that. But now I'm a bigger ass than I even was before. And I'm sorry, Jodie, but you're coming across as a big ass. And the reason I take exception to you coming across like a big ass is because you're not a big ass. You're one of the most intelligent, talented people in this business. So I would appreciate it if you acted like one of the most talented and intelligent people in this business and not take aim and take shots at the audience for liking what they like. Not taking shots at the movie-going public who have made your career and judging them for what they do and do not like to go and see, and thus passing on blame to studios and saying, oh, you shouldn't give them movies that they want. What? Because really, at the bottom line here, that's what we've got. We've got a Hollywood actress and director saying studios should not make movies that people want to see, which is one of the dumbest things you can possibly say. So anyway, I've gone on and on about that. Time for us to move on to something else. Thanks. And by the way, guys, I know a bunch of you guys have been sending in super chats. Do me a favor. If you have not sent in a super chat yet, please do not send in any more super chats. Please stop, because I want to make sure I get time to get to all of the ones that you guys have already sent in. All right. With that out of the way, let's move on to the final topic today, about a little film that I like very much called The Last Jedi. This question comes to us from one of my Patreon supporters, Bernard, who writes, "Greetings, John, and a Happy New Year to you and yours." Thank you so much, Bernard. So, Star Wars The Last Jedi just finished at #1 again at the box office. Became the second fastest movie in history to make $500 million. Well, to be specific, Bernard, it was the second fastest to reach $500 million domestically. Crossed the $1 billion mark worldwide, and took the second smallest third weekend drop in movie history. Why are there still people calling it a bomb? Well, one other little thing to correct you on, Bernard. And this came out of a report in Variety. It is true that Star Wars The Last Jedi did just take, in a way, the second smallest drop ever for a film in its third weekend. But second smallest drop for any film that opened to over $100 million. And it's much easier for films that open to $100 million or more to drop significantly because so many people already went to go see it. But let's just be specific. It is the second smallest drop-off for a third weekend in box office history for a film that opened to over $100 million. So let's just be specific about that and make sure we're calling it as it actually is. Yeah, Star Wars The Last Jedi, in day 17 of release, became the #1 domestic became the #1 domestic box office film of the year, surpassing Beauty and the Beast, which was the #1 domestic box office film of the year. It came as the second fastest film in history, only behind Star Wars: The Force Awakens, to cross the $500 million mark. Domestically, that is. It's already crossed the $1 billion mark and is just continuing on. And there's some very, very good numbers for Last Jedi. Now, none of that means that if you're somebody who does not like Star Wars: Last Jedi, none of those box office numbers mean you should like it. Not at all. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Nothing wrong with that. That's fine. And if The Last Jedi made no money and if it did bomb and you liked it, that doesn't mean you shouldn't like it. But there is one narrative that has really frustrated me, and that a lot of people have been trying to point to the idea that, you know, I got on this Twitter fight with somebody a little while ago saying The Last Jedi is never even going to cross $1 billion. It's going to do this. No one's going to go back and watch it again, blah, blah, blah. It took like a 24, something in that neighborhood, somewhere in that, it took like a 24% drop from weekend 2 to weekend 3. It's made over $50 million in its third weekend, which is great numbers for a lot of films on their first weekend. That only happens if people are going back to watch it again and again. And they are. None of this means the movie is good. None of this means that the movie is bad. But there is this artificial narrative that some people have been trying to paint that, you know, The Last Jedi is some kind of box office disaster. No one's going to go see it. No one's going to come back to watch it, blah, blah, blah. Let's put that to rest, shall we? The numbers clearly prove that you're wrong on that. Doesn't mean you're wrong to not like it. You are perfectly right within your opinion-based stuff to like or not like The Last Jedi. That's totally fine. That has nothing to do with box office, good or bad. Nothing at all. But you're right. There are still some people out there who are trying to paint a narrative that The Last Jedi is some kind of financial bomb. On day 17, it's already become the #1 domestic box office film of the year, second shortest drop-off in a third weekend in history, and has already crossed $1 billion at the worldwide, unlike day 17. So, and I've said for 2 years that it was not going to match the box office of The Force Awakens. There are too many things that went into that. It's not going to come close. It's not going to come close to The Force Awakens. But to call The Last Jedi anything other than a box office smash hit, I think calls your bias into question. Whether you like it or not is irrelevant. It is any film that crosses the $1 billion mark. Something, by the way, that no DC film has ever done. A film that crosses the $1 billion mark is a box office smash hit. Were they expecting more? Maybe. Maybe it's fair to say that The Last Jedi isn't meeting expectations. That might be, there's a debate to be had there. That might be fair to say. That's fine. But I don't think anybody, without being completely biased, can say with any kind of a straight face that Star Wars: The Last Jedi is any kind of a box office failure. It's still rolling. It's still going. It's still pulling in money. It's been #1 in the box office 3 weeks in a row. So it is what it is. So anyway, there we go with that. All right. That will do it for the pre-selected questions, guys. It's now time for us to go to your live questions that you guys have sent in to me. But before I get to the live questions, I do want to take a 1-minute commercial break here and talk about the thing that keeps the lights on around here, and that is my Patreon page. Listen, guys, do me a favor. If you are somebody who watches my content and you enjoy the videos I make, do me a favor and at some point today, head on over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. While you're there, it'll give you all the information about what it means to be a Patreon supporter of mine, how being a Patreon supporter actually makes these shows possible, and then some of the benefits of being a Patreon supporter as well. And if you guys read that stuff and you decide to become a Patreon supporter of mine and help me make these shows, awesome. But if you read it and you don't, that's totally fine too. I'm just glad you're here being a movie fan with us and talking about movies with us. All right, guys, we are now going to go into the live questions. Again, if things freeze, whatever, forgive me, but we're not in my regular studio right now. So let's get on with the live questions. The first live question we've got coming in here today comes to us from, and why is it not showing up? It's not showing up, and I don't know why. It's freezing. Okay, I'll just take that down. I'll just have to read off the questions because for whatever reason, they're not showing up. All right, the first one comes to us from Rob Lau, who just sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, Rao. The next one comes to us from Siobhan Dixit, who writes, Happy New Year, John. Wanted to send some joy your way. Thank you so much, Siobhan. I appreciate that. Mads Hadson writes, Hey, John, Happy New Year from Denmark. Thank you so much, Mads. I really appreciate that. Rob Lau also just sent in a Happy New Year. Thank you so much, Rob. Eric DeRigi, okay, now we got our first question. Eric DeRigi writes, did you notice the description of the hacker in The Last Jedi matches Indiana Jones's, his outfit at Club Obi-Wan? Oh, you know what? I did not. Okay, let me read that again because that's kind of interesting. Did you notice that the description of the hacker in The Last Jedi matches Indiana Jones's outfit at Club Obi-Wan? I did not notice that. I will now have to go and pull that up because if you're right, that's hilarious. I remember there was definitely a white jacket. I remember Indy wearing a white jacket in the club. If we're talking about the same scene where she's saying anything goes. But if he's wearing some kind of red bloom flower, that's killer. That will tear it up. Okay, I'm going to check that out. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I'm going to check that out. Thanks a lot, Eric. All right, the next one comes to us from James Welsh, who writes, if Marvel introduced Blade, how do you think they would explain vampires being around in the MCU? I honestly don't think they're going to introduce Blade. How would they express it? Well, I mean, hey, you're talking about a planet that's had Inhumans around. I believe Captain Marvel is supposed to take place in the 80s, so there have been supernatural things. They would probably handle it in such a way that vampires has always just been myth. That at least things that we thought were myth, but they're actually real. That's probably the way they would handle it if they do it, but I don't think they're going to bring Blade into the MCU. That's not to say they may not try a Blade show on the Disney streaming service or something along those lines, but I still have my doubts that they're going to bring Blade into the MCU. I'm not saying they shouldn't bring him into the MCU. I'm just saying I have my doubts that they do. But if they did, I think the approach they would take was just that, like anything else, it's a myth in the world. We all think, we all know about vampires, but we don't think they're real. But down under the shadows, they really are real, and they're about to be found out to the world. That's probably how they would address it. At least I think that's how they would do it. All right, the next question comes to us from Jamie, and Jamie writes, but John, he says, when I asked the question of Wolverine's costume, I didn't mean, okay, I think Jamie's probably the same guy who asked about could the Wolverine yellow and spandex thing work on screen. I didn't mean him wearing spandex, and how surprised, let me try this again. But John, when I asked the question of the Wolverine costume, I didn't meant him wearing spandex. And how surprised were you when Kevin Feige allowed the appearance of Hulk's green buttocks in Thor 3? Enjoy the new year. I was surprised when they did the butt shot of the Hulk, but it was a great comedic moment. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall when Taika Waititi, the director, went to Kevin Feige with this idea. I want to have a naked Hulk butt shot. I think it'll be funny. And the fact that it's animated, I'm sure, lessens the blow. And you know what? I got a feeling Kevin Feige probably went for it pretty quick. I have a feeling he went for it pretty quick. He probably ran it by a couple of guys to say, will this put us in any trouble with the MPAA rating? An animated butt shot? No? Okay, fine, then go ahead. I bet he didn't even run it up to Alan Horn or Bob Iger. I bet he just kind of went for it. So, honestly, I'm not that surprised that he did it. Now, if it was a naked Scarlett Johansson butt shot, that's an entirely different story. And now I got you guys thinking about that. I'm sorry. But that would be an entirely different story. But honestly, I wasn't that surprised that he did the shot because it was good comedic element. It worked well for the scene. And it was just a lot of fun. So I'm not surprised Feige did that. He's always looking for stuff like that. All right, let's move on now to Orange Hand, who writes, speaking of Ragnarok, who are your favorite sexy villainesses, and where does Hela rank among them? Well, Hela is great. There's something great about Hela, not just because it's Cate Blanchett and she's a sexy woman, not just that. There's something inherently sexy about the character in a evil way. There's something inherently sexy about the character, and it's got the camera froze on me again there, guys. Sorry about that. Let me get that reset back up for you. There's something really inherently sexy about that character and the way that she comes across that kind of makes her right up there. It makes her one of my favorite, to be honest with you. I love that one. What are some other really sexy villainesses? There's probably several of them that if I gave a lot of thought to, I could think of some, but I'd have to sit down and make a list, but I completely agree with you. Hela is definitely one of those. All right, let's move on. The next one comes to us from Shivam Dixit, who writes, do you think Thanos destroys the Asgardian ship and kills everyone aboard along with Loki in the first 10 minutes of the film? That would be ballsy, in my opinion. I don't think he destroys the ship. what I think now, for those of you, again, a little bit of a spoiler for something that happens in Thor Ragnarok, but again, most of you guys have seen Thor Ragnarok. What I think happens is that he takes the ship, and we see that scene in Infinity War trailer of Loki presenting the Tesseract, right? He's holding up the Infinity Stone. I think that happens on that ship. I think Thanos boards the ship. I think Thor tries to confront him. He beats Thor and tosses him out an airlock, and then Thor comes across the Guardians of the Galaxy. But I do not think he destroys the ship. I don't think he kills Loki. I don't think he kills everybody else on that ship, because we know that there are several people on that ship that are going to be appearing in future MCU movies, right? Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie is going to be appearing in more movies. Taika Waititi's Korg. Korg is probably going to be appearing in future movies. I don't think Idris Elba is done yet as Heimdall. So I have a feeling that he boards the ship, takes over the ship, gets the stone from Loki, and throws Thor out the airlock. I don't think he destroys it and kills everybody on board. Could be wrong, but that's the way I'm going to guess it. That's how I think it's going to go down. All right. Next question comes to us from Kevin Burnett, who writes, are your top 10 best films of 2017 also your top 10 favorite films of the year? I probably think so, yeah. Like I put out a video the other day. You can find it on my YouTube channel. It's right there on the front page. My top 10 films of 2017. I did name Logan as the best film, as what I believe is the best film of the year. Molly's Game actually came in a surprising second. But yeah, I'm going to say if it's not exactly the same as my favorites list, it's very, very, very close to the same as my favorites list. And it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes I put together a best list of the year, but if I really had to be honest, I'd had a couple of guilty pleasures that I put on my most favorite list instead. But this year, it kind of worked out pretty much the same. Again, there might be a few minor differences, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same list. All right, thanks a lot for the question, Kevin. Next one. Rob Lau writes, hey, John, big fan from the UK. Happy 2018. Thank you so much, Rob, and happy 2018 to all of you guys as well. This next one comes to us from, good luck to me, trying to read this one, Shao Agaya Nayak, who writes, Happy New Year. Thank you so much. Saw Lawrence of Arabia. It was awesome. What are some all-time great films you would recommend? I recommend reading the Superman Rebirth run. Yeah, Lawrence of Arabia, you cannot go wrong watching that. The original Ten Commandments, the original Ben-Hur. The original Ben-Hur is just forget about it. It's so great. So the original Ben-Hur, Bridge Over the River Kwai is one of my all-time favorites. Spartacus with Kirk Douglas, Michael Douglas's dad, Spartacus. If we're going all the way back, those are some of the ones that I would really hold up and say, check those out. If you haven't had a chance to treat yourself to those movies, start off, and I envy you that you got to watch Lawrence of Arabia for the first time. All right. Next one comes to us from Alan Gonzalez, who writes, Happy New Year, man. Thank you so much. Would you consider a Star Wars, Star Trek universe? Or is it not even compatible? It's not even compatible. I would never want to... Look, I'm a fan of Star Trek. My life revolves around Star Wars, but I in no way ever want those two to cross over. They are completely incompatible with each other. So no, would never personally ever want to see them cross over. Not in a million years. All right, Devontae Brown writes, John, I disagree on Kingsman being dead. Part 2's gross and budget is not far from Part 1. Similar situation happened twice in Mission Impossible series. Well, no, they weren't that close. It was a significant drop that Part 2 took from Part 1, but it's not just the box office. It was a terrible movie. I mean, I'm using a bit of hyperbole. Kingsman: The Golden Circle was not awful, but it was a bad film. Again, I'm just speaking from my own point of view. It was a bad film, and it made it onto my actually was the #1 film on my most disappointing films of 2017 list. Mostly because of how much I loved the first one. I thought the second one was a big step down. And I think they lost some of their audience. So not only did it make less money at the box office and create a downward trajectory, I think they lost a bunch of their audience. And yeah, so I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. There are people out there who really like Kingsman: The Golden Circle, which is great. That's awesome. For me, it was my most disappointing movie of 2017, and I would like to see it die. I'd like to see Matthew Vaughn take his amazing creative gift and go and do other projects now, and just give up. Just, you know what? The Kingsman was great, had a great run, move on now and do other things. Maybe this Man of Steel movie we all want to see him do. Maybe that would be a good one to do. All right, next one comes to us from Thomas Purdy, who writes, "Hey, John. My wife thinks the Pitch Perfect 3 soundtrack is better than the Greatest Showman soundtrack. My question is, do you know any good divorce lawyers in the Hamilton era?" Yeah, sorry. No. Just no. Everything's subjective, but no. The soundtrack to... First of all, there are no original pieces. There are no original songs in the Pitch Perfect 3 soundtrack. The Greatest Showman soundtrack is loaded not with just great music, but... After you've seen the movie, I was just listening to the soundtrack again this morning. They have emotional hooks that pull you into the movie. Like I listened to a song, whether it's Never Enough or From Now On or This Is Me or Greatest Show or Rewrite the Stars. If I listen to any of those songs, they immediately transport me into the emotion of the scenes they were in the movies. The Pitch Perfect soundtrack doesn't do that. Come on. And I worked in law in Hamilton. I'll look up some good divorce lawyers for you. All right. Siobhan Dixit writes, I had goosebumps when I first saw the Marvel intro for Spider-Man Homecoming because of that classic Spidey orchestra theme. Can they do the same with X-Men? Well, they could. The difference is this. A whole hell of a lot more people know that old classic da-da-da, da-da-da. A whole hell of a lot of people know that because that goes back to like the 60s, I think. Then the da-da-da-da-da, 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 like that X-Men animated theme. A whole hell of a lot fewer people watch that. So could they do it? Sure. Yep, they could. Would they? I'm not sure because it wouldn't have the same impact that doing the Spider-Man one did. Because the Spider-Man one covers more generations and is kind of more well-known. So could they? Yes. Would they? I doubt it. But who knows? You never see. We'll have to wait and see. All right. Let's see. Jay Vardy writes, do you think there will be a next generation in the JJ Trekverse? At what point would that happen? I don't think they will. I don't think they're going to move on from that. I think the next generation was the next generation. I don't think they're going to revisit it. I'm not saying they should or shouldn't. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying I don't think that's something they are going to do or really have a lot of interest in doing. So I'm going to say I doubt it. And I'm perfectly fine with that, to be honest with you. Let's see. Brandon Torres writes, is Dolby Cinema at AMC the same or similar to Prime? The Dolby Cinema at AMC is AMC Prime. The actual name of it now, when they joined up with Dolby to get their new dual laser projection system in the Prime theaters, they renamed it from AMC Prime to Dolby Cinemas at AMC Prime. That's the actual name of the Prime Cinema now. So as far as I know, every Prime I've been to now is the Dolby Cinemas at AMC Prime. I haven't heard of Dolby Cinema just at AMC. So I don't know if that's true or not, but just everyone I've seen has been Dolby Cinema at AMC Prime. So to the best of my knowledge, they're one and the same. They're one and the same. All right, good question. By the way, still, I think the best movie theater going experience is AMC Prime. Or the Dolby Cinema at AMC Prime. I still think that's the best movie-going experience. Okay, next question comes to us from Alan Gonzalez, who writes, about theaters bringing back people. I think they should offer a free copy of the movie you go to watch after it's out on video. Well, they'll never do that. Studios won't do that. It's just too much. Plus, we talked about this the other day on the show where somebody suggested like a 15% discount on the movie when it comes out on home video. And the few problems I have with that are, number one, some studio or some theater chains already do that. I know Cineplex Odeon in Canada does that already. But the other thing is that, number one, it's only a value to you if you're somebody who buys movies on home video in the first place, so that you immediately cut out the advantage for most people. Secondly, it doesn't scratch that itch of instant gratification. People want an instant reward. Like, I'm coming back to the theater now so I can experience this, or I can have this, or get this reward, or whatever. We are creatures of instant gratification. That's what we are. We are that. And the whole idea about, hey, come to the movies now, and then if you're somebody who even buys movies in the first place, 3.5 months from now, you can get 15% off the movie. Yay? And so that's why I don't know that that one really affects it. And the whole idea about just giving them a free copy of the movie, I don't think that's something the studios would do. But again, it still faces the same problem, I think. So I'm not sure that would do it. But hey, keep thinking outside the box. It's better than any idea I've come up with so far. That's for sure. All right. Next one comes to us from Amy Singh, who writes, I listened to your rant on the dark side of The Last Jedi criticism. I hope other YouTubers are brave enough like you to oppose it. Keep up inspiring us. Thank you so much, man. And I really appreciate, by the way, I thought I was going to get a lot of negative feedback for that, but you guys have been very supportive, and I really appreciated that. Thank you so much. Dirk Walker writes, do you think there is less curiosity and speculation following The Last Jedi than there was after The Force Awakens? Will that hurt the numbers for Episode 9? Nah. Episode 9 is going to open. It's going to be the number 2 or number 3 biggest all-time box office opening in history, and it'll be fine. Are there less questions going into it? I think there are different questions. And to be honest, I said forever. By the way, some minor Star Wars The Last Jedi spoilers here. Tune out for the next 30 seconds if you don't want to hear anything. I told everybody, I don't know why anybody thought Rey was going to be a Skywalker. I've been telling you guys for 2 years she was not. I've been telling everybody for years. The Star Wars The Force Awakens makes it so bloody clear that she is not a Skywalker. No, John. No, I'm sorry. And I made a video about it and I laid it out. I said, listen to the lines. Listen to the dialogue. It makes it 100% clear she's not a Skywalker. And she doesn't need to be, because Force users have always just been born in the Star Wars universe. They haven't come from breeding. Though the example of Skywalkers is the 0.1% of an exception to that. All other Force users in the canon of Star Wars and in the lore of Star Wars have just been born. I told everybody that from day one. People say, well, who's Snoke? Well, I kind of thought he was Plagueis, but after I realized, that he's not Plagueis, I was like, you know what, I bet it's not important. Any more than who the Emperor was important. In the original trilogy, nobody cared who the Emperor was. We just had to know he's the big bad guy, he's really mean, and he's very powerful. For the sake of the narrative, that's all we needed to know. And I said, in the months leading up to The Last Jedi, I said, I bet you that's what's going to happen with Snoke. That he's nobody of note. That we need to know about in order for the story to make sense. We don't have to know who he is. And sure enough, they played it out that way. So a lot of the questions going into The Last Jedi were just questions that the fan community made up, which is fine. That's what we do as fans. We make up questions. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But they weren't really questions that the movie itself gave us. It's questions that we kind of created. And believe me, there will be lots of questions that the fan community creates going into Star Wars Episode 9. There will be different questions. But will it affect the numbers of number 9? No. Now, I guarantee it will be the number 2 or number 3. When that movie opens, it will be the number 2 or number 3 biggest box office opening in history. Just like The Last Jedi was, Episode 9 will be too. Make no mistake about it. All right, let's move on here. We just got a couple more to go. This one comes to us from Kevin Bennett, who writes, what are your thoughts about the MCU cherry-picking Fox/Marvel characters before going full X-Men? Storm as a wife to T'Challa, Super Skrull, and Captain Marvel. I'm all for it. Seriously, I am all for that. I mean, the idea of finally being able to see Black Panther hook up with Storm would be amazing. That would be incredible. I am all for cherry-picking single characters. However, even if you do just get into cherry-picking specific characters, you are still faced with a big problem, which is you are introducing the notion of mutants into the MCU, something they have never had there before. And that's something they've got to address. How do we explain even the existence of mutants? How do we exist what their role is in the society? How do we explain that it's never once been talked about, even though this has supposedly been around the world for decades? They have to address the question of how do they address this? They have to do that even before bringing in one single mutant character. And once they do address that, then they're all good. Cherry pick them in. And don't do an actual X-Men movie till 2024. I'm fine with that. Totally fine with that. Whatever they want to do is good with me. All right. The next question comes to us from Manuel Fernandez, who writes, let's see. Favorite biopic performance? Daniel Day-Lewis as Lincoln, Bruno Ganz as Hitler, De Niro as LaMotta, Phoenix as Johnny Cash, George Scott as Patton, Washington as Malcolm X, Kingsley as Gandhi, or Oldman as Churchill. I'm going to go Ben Kingsley as Mahatma Gandhi. That is a movie and a performance that stick with me to this day. Daniel Day-Lewis is the greatest actor of all time. He was fabulous in Lincoln, won an Academy Award for a reason. Oldman is amazing as Winston Churchill. Phoenix was great as Johnny Cash. The list goes on and on. Some great all-time wonderful performances in biopics. But to me, the one that will always stand out as the best is Sir Ben Kingsley as Gandhi. That's the one to me. And you know what? I know a lot of you guys haven't watched Gandhi. Go watch Gandhi. You think you know Ben Kingsley. Now go back and watch him in Gandhi. It's a special movie, man. It's a great movie. All right. Siobhan Dixit writes, when do you think we'll get a new version of the iconic 360 shot of the Avengers in Infinity War with like 30 plus characters in one frame? I shit my pants if that happens. To be honest, I feel like that would be a little bit forced. For a YouTube video, I think that would be cool to see. As a clip from a video game, I think that would be cool to see. But honestly, if they did one shot where they had like all 30 Avengers and they do that big 360 shot, instead of with the 5 of them, it's like with 30 of them going around, I think that would feel forced and unnatural and not really work. So honestly, I'm not for it myself. If they did it and it worked, awesome. I think it would come across kind of cheesy, to be honest with you. So I myself am going to lean away from that, but who knows? Let's just wait and see. All right, 3 questions left. Geoxy Z writes, hey John, do you think Peter O'Toole should have won Best Actor rather than Gregory Peck at the 1963 Oscars? Well, first of all, if you watch me for any period of time, you know that Peter O'Toole is one of my favorite actors of all time. I remember as a little kid, my first introduction to Peter O'Toole wasn't Lawrence of Arabia, it wasn't anything like that. It was this little film he did called My Favorite Year. And that was the film that as a little kid who knew nothing about movies, I still don't know anything about movies, but as a little kid who knew nothing about movies, I'm watching that and I'm just like going, oh my God, this guy's amazing and he's funny and he's great. And the scene where he drops his pants and all that kind of stuff like that. However, just because he's my favorite doesn't mean I think he should have won the Best Actor every single year. And it's hard to argue against Peck. So I'm going to say I'm okay with it. I'm going to say I'm okay with it. Let's see. Micah. I always pronounce Micah's last name wrong. Michael the Van Yagam. I'm going to try that again. Micah the Van Yagam writes, hey John, Happy New Year. Thank you so much, Micah. Any superhero in the past couple of years you see joining the big 3 that everyone knows of Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man? Well, yeah, I mean, Iron Man now. Iron Man, ever since the MCU got going, Iron Man is probably one of the most recognizable superheroes in the world. Captain America is going to be up there as well. As far as any of the other ones, I'm not really sure, but if I had to say one of them that you could say has gotten up to that ranks just because of the way he's been marketed and used over the past 10 years is Iron Man. I could probably see Iron Man being that. Good question. All right, and the final question today, and we wrap up today's show with another question from Manuel Fernandez, who writes, here's a motto to live by for the new year and beyond. Think with the brain of an adult, but live with the heart of a kid. I think that's a wonderful saying, especially for movie fans. Think with the mind of an adult, but live with the heart of a kid. I love that. That's wonderful. I kind of live my life by that every single day. So very good. Nice saying, Manuel. I really appreciate that. All right, guys, so a few technical glitches here and there, but thus is to be expected when I'm trying to do my whole show with just a laptop and off in Canada, not in my home studio, but I think we got through it okay. Thank you guys for hanging in there with me and getting through this episode with me. Really appreciate it. Listen, guys, don't forget, if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, click on that subscribe button and become a subscriber. If you're not getting all the notifications, click that little button that has the bell symbol on it. That'll just make sure that you will know when, and you'll get notified when I put up new videos and stuff like that. Click the thumbs up button, leave a thought in the comments section below. Remember, guys, it's all about disagreeing with each other. That's the fun about being film fans. But remember, when we're disagreeing and we're having our debates, you're doing it with a fellow film fan, somebody who's on your side, even though we have different points of view. Just keep that in mind as you're doing that in the new year. And of course, guys, follow me on social media, on Facebook and on Twitter, and on Instagram, simply at John Campea. You can see that right there. All right, guys, that will do it for me for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for joining me. My name's John Campea. Happy New Year, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow on January 2nd. Until then, bye-bye.